morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fifth ASEAN ROK Think Tank Strategic Dialogue under the theme ROK's Indo-Pacific Strategy and ASEAN Toward Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. My name is Lee Sang-hoon, researcher at the Center for ASEAN Indian Studies, KNDA. It's a great honor to be your host today. Today's conference is broadcasted live on KNDA's official YouTube channel, KNDA Live. We have two channels, English and Korean. You can choose your language. 오늘 회의는 국립외교원 KNDA 라이브 유튜브 채널로 생방송됩니다. 국문, 영문 두 개 채널로 운영 중이오니 편하신 언어로 시청 부탁드립니다. Now, I would like to welcome His Excellency Dr. Park Cheol-hee, Chancellor of Korea National Diplomatic Academy, for his welcoming remarks.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to host a public roundtable session of the fifth ASEAN-Korea Think Tank Strategic Dialogue. I think this year's event is particularly meaningful in that we have resumed a face-to-face dialogue after 3 years of online discussions due to the COVID situation. Last November, the Korean government announced the Indo-Pacific strategy in Jakarta, Indonesia. And Korea-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, what we call KASI, has been presented. I'd like to emphasize once again today that ASEAN stands at the center of Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy. How to keep rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific, how to achieve common prosperity and growth, and how to jointly address regional and international challenges constitute core of our joint action. I think Korea can be a very comfortable strategic partner to the ASEAN countries. First of all, Korea does not pose any security threats to the ASEAN countries. Instead, Korea is ready and willing to work together with the ASEAN countries to strengthen security in the region for all of us. Second, Korea does not impose economic pressures or sanctions to ASEAN countries at all. Eliciting mutually beneficial ties stands at the heart of our cooperation. Third, Korea does not have any historical baggage to ASEAN countries. ASEAN and Korea can move together to enhance the level of cooperation without burden of history. And Korea can be of substantial help to ASEAN countries. Korea has accumulated remarkable experiences in modern times. Korea has successfully overcome poverty, authoritarianism, and human rights violation. Now, Korea is undoubtedly a democratic country, a fluent country, and globally featuring country. Also, Korea's economic presence is increasingly global. In some industrial sectors, Korean companies have developed a global competitiveness in such sectors as semiconductor, a battery, electric vehicle, and etc. In sharing digital technology, I think as Korea is second to none, especially in sharing a digital technology with ordinary people. So I think we can share all these economic benefits to enhance the living standard of the people in the region. And it is also needless to say that the Korean culture, including Korean food, Korean cosmetics, Korean drama, and Korean pops, are enjoyed by many ASEAN people as well. So we have lots of things to common, and then we can have joint action together. But for the strategic adventure, I think it's time for us to act together rather than sitting on the desk and think over and over again to give. So I think it's time for us to acted together to give substantial benefits to the people in the ASEAN countries and in Korea together. So I hope all the presenters today give wonderful ideas and policy proposals that can be implemented on the ground without that much time gap, because we are preparing for the next year's the Korea ASEAN Summit meeting. So I think we can find very good ideas in today's round the table. Once again, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to the eminent guests from ASEAN countries and all the participants who joined us today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chancellor. Now, we will begin our roundtable with invited ASEAN experts on the stage. Please welcome the moderator of this session, Ambassador Lee Moon-hee, Senior Executive Director of IFAN's KNDA. Ambassador Lee, the floor is yours.
Oh, yeah, good morning. Thank you for joining today's this morning's program. Thank you, Chancellor Park, and also the Mr. Lee and all the professors and staffs who organized this important gatherings. As we said, we have a fifth ASEAN ROK strategic dialogue, which was, I think, almost 3 years since we met in person. From day before yesterday, we had the closed door meetings, and we have a very in-depth discussions regarding Korea ASEAN cooperations and all the strategic environment in this region. Today's the session is for the general public to deepen the understanding of each other's position, this fluid regional dynamics, also the identify and further cooperation between ASEAN countries and Korea. So for that sake, I think we invited 9 distinguished guests from all different ASEAN countries. Before we going into a detailed discussion, I think it's better to have a brief kind of introduction from each of our speakers. So to my left, I think Mr. Nguyen, start briefly introduce yourself to the public. Yep.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Nguyen Nam Dương. I work for the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. I would like to thank Korean National Diplomatic Academy for inviting me to this event.
Good morning. My name is Mai Sayavong. I'm Director General of the Institute of Foreign Affairs of Laos. Prior to take this post, I was Ambassador at Large at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and soon after complete my tour of duty as Ambassador of Laos to the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. It is my great honor and pleasure to join this roundtable meeting to share some our perspective on the regional problem that we facing now. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the Korean National Diplomatic Academy for inviting me. I am Lucio B. Pitli III. I'm a research fellow with the Philippine-based Asia Pacific Pathways to Progress Foundation. Great pleasure and privilege for me to sit in this panel and learn and listen to the perspectives of my fellow colleagues from ASEAN and also, of course, from the Republic of Korea. Thank you. Mabuhay. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Elete from Myanmar, Executive Board Member of Myanmar Institute of Strategic and International Studies. I'm like to express my sincere thanks to KNDA for inviting me to attend this dialogue and roundtable sections. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting us to be here. My name is Pongpisu Pusparat. I'm Director of Institute of Security and International Studies at Geelong, Thailand. thanks again for.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank Chancellor Park for the kind invitations. Pu Sotirak, I was the former executive director, Cambodian Institute for Cooperations and Peace. Most delighted to be back to the beautiful city of Seoul. A little bit cold, but I really enjoyed the sumptuous Korean dinner offered by Chancellor Park last night. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Daniel. I'm a senior fellow in foreign policy and security studies from the Institute of Strategic International Studies in Malaysia. An absolute pleasure to be here, and my thanks to the host for the opportunity.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Mantong. I'm a researcher with the Department of International Relations, Center for Strategic and International Studies in Indonesia, Jakarta. Glad to be back in Seoul. Looking forward for a fruitful discussion.
안녕하세요. Very good morning to all of you. My name is Joanne, and I'm from the ASEAN Studies Center of the ISIS Yusof Ishak Institute in Singapore. I am the lead researcher and the co-coordinator of the center. And previously, I was the head of external relations at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta for 7 years. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. As you may see, we have a distinguished guest from all different ASEAN countries. So I think that today's session will be very productive and informative to understand each other's position and then figure out the way forward in terms of enhanced cooperation between ASEAN and Korea. We have a little bit of 90 minutes for this session. To manage our time, I think we already proposed possible questions to all our speakers regarding the important issues that we will discuss this morning. The first one will be, I think, the most important thing is the strategic competition between the United States and China. So in that regard, I would like to propose and then listen to each speaker's thinking about what is your country's concern and positions in relation to the changing landscape of U.S.-China strategic competition and this East Asian region. I would like to listen to from Dr. Nguyen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the ASEAN envision the Indo-Pacific not only as a contiguous territorial spaces, but it's a closely integrated and interconnected region. Of course, in the ASEAN region, ASEAN should play a central and strategic role. And in this region is the importance of the maritime domain and the evolving regional architecture that is important to everybody. So with regard to the US-China strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific, well, that is everybody's concern. Well, Vietnam's primary concern is the violation of international law and the erosion of the regional rules-based order and the possible decline of multilateralism and regional institutions. Well, we are concerned about the violation of sovereignty of smaller countries and the division among regional countries when smaller countries are forced to take sides. So this is the background of the Cold War, and we don't want to see it repeated again in this region. Well, this region is not exclusively for the US and China. It's not only for the major power, but the middle power like Korea and the ASEAN country also have a role to play. ASEAN envision this Indo-Pacific region is a dialogue and cooperation instead of rivalry. And this is region of development and prosperity. So there are other important players, as I just mentioned. Now, we support the re-engagement of the major powers, and the central role of ASEAN should be upheld. It is under challenge at the moment, but ASEAN can never abandon its central role in this regional architecture. We thank Korea and other countries to support our goal and mission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dr. Nguyen. I think we can have, about 5 minutes for each other's presentation. So from the Ambassador Xiaobong, I think you can have 5 minutes.
Again, good morning. Thank you very much, Excellency Lee Mun-hee, our moderator today. It is a great opportunity for me to share about the concern or the Lao perspective or Lao position in the relation in the issue that's about the U.S.-China strategic competition in the region. I just would like to talk on Laos' stand. As you understand that Laos is a small and landlocked nation situated in the fastest growing economy. We recognize that the importance of maintaining good relation with neighbors and beyond for stability and development cooperation. Our foreign policy is emphasizes cooperation over conflict, and we aspire to maintain positive relation with both regional and global power. The U.S.-China geostrategic competition present both benefit as well as challenges for Laos. It is crucial for us to navigate this complex landscape to safeguard our interests and maintain stability. Laos choose not take side while giving equal treatment to all parties. This due to the fact that working with all parties can make significant contribution to the socio-economic development of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Xiaobong. Now, Mr. Lucio Blanco Pico III.
Good morning. The Philippines is a maritime archipelagic country, very strategic location, and also increasingly being put on a strain because of the great power competition between the U.S. and China. We all know that the Philippines is one of the long-standing U.S. ally in the region, but at the same time, China is our largest trade partner. So when the competition between the two giants intensify, countries in the region are torn. And so these are important relations that we have to keep and we have to maintain. And I think it's very important that countries in the region like Korea, which is also, like the Philippines, a fellow U.S. ally, and at the same time do a lot of trade with China. I think there are a lot of lessons and experience that Korea can share to countries in the region, to be able to help other countries, navigate this increasingly turbulent times. So I think there is a recognition about the need to, assess or mitigate the risks. So of course, the expanding of trade with major partners like US and China, both crucial. But at the same time, of course, we recognize the concerns about being too beholden to one major market or one major investor. So this is where the need to diversify partners, both on the economic and security front. So Korea has the capabilities for both. And I think one good development of late is the signing of the Philippines-Korea Free Trade Agreement on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit in Jakarta. It is, I think, the first FTA by Korea under the Korea Indo-Pacific Strategy, and it is only the second bilateral FTA of the Philippines after Japan. So this speaks volume about Philippine desire to work with partners in the region, and Korea has the capacity to provide us, diversify our markets, and of course allow us to get more capable investors. That we need not worry about, the potential security implications of investments. And so on the maritime front, Philippines, Korea both have a huge coastline. And I think in light of recent developments like the High Seas Treaty or BBNJ agreement, where of course both countries are trying to develop blue economy. And I think in terms of maritime law enforcement, in terms of commercial deep sea mining, so both in terms of regulatory and also marine technology, I think Korea's capacities and technology in this front that can bear for regional countries like the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucio Blanco. It's very helpful remarks. Now I turn to the Mrs. Lily Dean, please.
Thank you. The ASEAN has been undergoing pressure due to the great power competition of US-China. On the one hand, the competition between the two powers make foreign policy decision making more complicated. But on the other hand, challenges apart, such competitive pressure also carries a potential to create more opportunities for ASEAN to achieve their national interest. As for Myanmar, Myanmar is the largest country in mainland Southeast Asia, and it's bordered by Bangladesh and India to its northwest, China to its northeast, Laos and Thailand to its east and southeast, and the Andaman Sea and the Bay of Bengal to its south and southwest. So Myanmar is neighbor to a number of ASEAN countries and a gateway to the huge markets of China and India. So at current situation, Myanmar is trying to balance regional, geopolitical, and country's national interest and maintain a neutralist foreign policy. Myanmar practices the independent and active foreign policy with 8 following principles. And also, Myanmar continues to maintain and promote friendly relations with neighboring countries and the countries in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stain. Thank you for your remarks. Now I turn to the Dr. Pongpisut Puspara from Thailand.
Thank you, Ambassador Lee. For Thailand, actually the US-China strategic competition in the regions kind of put a lot of pressures to Thailand. Thailand's position regarding the US and China competitions is very complex and multifaceted, right? Characterized by attempts to balance between the two superpower. Thailand is a US security alliance, but at the same time, economically, we sort of rely on China. But both China and the United States are Thailand's top trading partners and top investors in the countries, including the Japanese. So Thailand also support U.S. and China's initiative and the roles in the region, such as like IPEF, Indo-Pacific strategies, BRI, GDI, GSI, those kind of things. It's like a sort of hedging strategy. But what we have been concerned is that the growing tensions between the two great power increasingly constraining Thailand's ability to continue its hedging strategy. Washington's prioritizing maritime security has some sort of sidelined Thailand's strategic importance to U.S. priorities. It will unavoidably push Bangkok to continue seeking for another great powers to rely on at certain points, including Beijing. Another concern is regional in nature, right? It's like especially the increasing irrelevance of ASEAN as a central role, in this regional architecture. So ASEAN has been also sidelined by a lot of multilateral initiative by great power. So that, if not managed well, right, we all ASEAN countries would also be concerned that ASEAN centralities would be gradually destroyed and eventually drive the regions into like divided regions, and then that even escalate the conflict in the regions as a whole. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Dr. Pongpisut. Now I turn to the Ambassador Soshirak.
Good morning again. Thank you, Ambassador Lee, for sharing these sessions. I'm pleased to be among the eminent speaker here. Let me share my view concerning the much anticipated comprehensive strategic partnership that ASEAN and Korea will forge together in a short future, and try to give some suggestion for both sides to divert any unwarranted consequences that might derive from the U.S.-China rivalry. So here my suggestion. Both sides have to reinforce the strategic partnerships with candid and strategic dialogue with mutual respect. At the same time, must take responsibility as trusted middle power, being middle power together, yearning to contribute to easing the tension created by the US and China and other powers as well. Second, address all latent security flashpoint with pragmatic diplomatic practice in accordance to the rule-based order, and be willing to support each other positions on sensitive issues that affect respective national security, economic interests, be it specific issues such as the South China Sea, the cross-strait relations, North Korea nuclear program, Myanmar crisis, and lately the Ukraine war, as well as the Israel and Palestine crisis. Third, ensure the priority area prescribed in CASI, which consists of 8 core lines of effort in line with the 3 visions of the Republic of Korea new Indo-Pacific strategy, namely freedom, peace, and prosperity, and willing to implement swiftly and with effective coordination and monitoring, as well as evaluations, to ensure full success of the policy design that agree upon by both sides. Fourth, maximize the outcome of ASEAN for ASEAN side, we should firmly enhance our effort in all the mechanisms that we propose, and from the Korea side, they need to support these mechanisms, particularly related to freedom visions, promoting ASEAN ROK strategic coordinations under peace visions, as well as other core line in the prosperity vision as well. The core effort will not only be to show practical result in the long run, but also focus on building a strong institutional foundation between the 2 regions. Fifth recommendation is to for Korea to observe that recently there are quite a bit of leadership change in ASEAN member state, Thailand and Cambodia being an example to this, and therefore I believe that the Republic of Korea should also focus on collaborating closely and intensively in promoting good governance, merit-based system, as well as to ensure that the well-being of the people are well taken care of. My 6th recommendation is to improve people-to-people relations between the 2 sides, promote cross-border interaction, encourage cultural and academic exchange, think tank, research, scientific, and digital collaborations. My 7th recommendation is in the maritime domain, South Korea should encourage peaceful settlement of conflicts, offer mediation support, and promote ASEAN ROK maritime training exercise focusing on such issues as piracy prevention, medical evacuations, and search and rescue. My 8th recommendation is to, with regard to Myanmar junta planning, there's some indication there will be secret talk between North Korea over arms deal. Therefore, ASEAN and South Korea should promote the prevention of development of any nuclear military related program. My last recommendation is for ROK and ASEAN is to focus on improving ASEAN-led mechanism such as the EAF, the ARF, the APT, more effectively and more relevant and meaningful in coping with security threat in the Indo-Pacific strategy. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Sochrak. As always, it's a very useful remarks, and it also covered some of the future questions that we'll propose, but I will ask you to elaborate it further in the later. Okay, now I turn to the Mr. Thomas Daniel from the Malaysia.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. So I think to narrow it down to Malaysia, we share a lot of similar concerns that have been raised by my Southeast Asian colleagues, and there's no surprise in that. But if I can just narrow it down, I think from my observation, Malaysia's positions and concerns are rather simple and also interrelated. A degree of strategic competition is actually good for us. It's good for Malaysia. We have benefited from it. Southeast Asia has benefited from it. But I think what we are concerned at is that, it's not just mere competition. It's unfettered competition. It is a competition that is increasingly hostile, increasingly zero-sum in its outlook and its thinking behind this. And this is a problem because the ramifications, I think, will be felt by small and middle-sized countries in the region which are non-aligned, which are neutral, which have benefited from really good relations with both the US and China. Malaysia is one of those countries. We have really good relations with both Beijing and DC in spite of disagreements on some issues. We have good economic relations with both, and now that is potentially under threat. I think on the, as a maritime country, as a claimant in the South China Sea dispute, as a country that is non-contiguous, because we have West Malaysia and then we have East Malaysia. We are separated in two physically by the South China Sea. So there are concerns that the US-China rivalry will subsume the sovereignty dispute in the sea, and that takes away whatever little agency that we, Malaysia, and other Southeast Asian claimants have left. Of course, I have to put in a caveat. These are my observations based on conversations that I observed back home. There are multiple points of views, of course, on this. Perhaps my last point, sir, is that I think what Malaysian stakeholders are concerned about is that I think, despite the constant reassurances that comes from Beijing and DC about Southeast Asia not having to make a binary choice. Ultimately, it seems like a binary choice is the only one that is offered, maybe not through words, but through implications, through long-term consequences of increasingly exclusionary trade and investment policies that could potentially affect third countries in Southeast Asia, countries like Malaysia, which are very dependent on networks both in China and the US. I end my remarks here, sir.
Thank you, Daniel. It's excellent remarks. Thank you for your contribution. Now I turn to Mr. Andrew Mantong from Indonesia.
Thank you for the question. Indonesia shares more similarities with Malaysia. We're siblings, right? So many of the positions that has previously, many positions that previously stated by Thomas, Indonesia share much of the points. It stems from the fact that Indonesia is an archipelagic countries, multicultural countries, democratic countries, and economically growing countries. So the biggest concern for Indonesia today is the fact that the ongoing competition has become rivalry, and rivalry can become an open conflict. And if that happens, Indonesia afraid that the great power would pressingly ask Indonesia to choose between the US and China. And Indonesia is also afraid that there are some consequences for ASEAN, where ASEAN is getting even pressed to choose between both sides. With that particular character, I think the biggest vulnerabilities and sense of security comes from the fact that Indonesia is an archipelagic country. It's open, so the buzzword for the Indonesian officials is interference and possible extended theater of warfare if the conflict erupted in South China Sea or in Taiwan. there are at least 4 key interests for Indonesia to be put into attention. First is related to the fact that Indonesia has major choke points of the international shipping route, which is the sea lanes of communication, and Indonesia does not want any of the sea lanes of communication to be used if the open conflict erupted. So let's say if the Taiwan conflict happened between China and the US, Indonesia would like to make sure that the Indonesian water is not being used for the access towards a military deployment in any particular form. Second is the fact that we are having the critical minerals on nickels. So Indonesia is also afraid that major competition would develop into a competition of resources with regards to the position of technology, battery industry, and so on and so forth. The next key interest of Indonesia is securing the demographic composition of the Indonesian citizens. We believe that we should come out of the middle income trap before 2040 or something. Otherwise, we're going to lose the opportunity, and the demographic composition of the Indonesian citizen would change. Therefore, we need to make sure that the economic growth is not going to be disrupted. So we want to be able to ensure that our trade ties with China is being secured, but our security relations with the US also being stable. The increasing discourse in Indonesian citizens and public officials today is whether we can have another sort of coordination position, not only between ASEAN countries, but also between middle power countries, which is like-minded, like Korea, Australia, India, Japan, and so on and so forth. And the last but not least, this has been apparent just before I flew to Korea. We hosted in CSIS foreign policy speech by presidential candidates. Two of three presidential candidates of Indonesia for the next election have already given speech, and 2 of them mentioned that the most worrying trend for the global politics today is the democratic backsliding. So we have been witnessing some of the unconstitutional government change in the region. We've been witnessing that the principle of human rights are being hypocritically used in major conflict, for example, Palestine versus Israel. And we are worried that this is not really the time to promote and to encourage the principle of democracy, which is related to principles of freedom of expressions and human rights. So these are the facts that compose and constitute the major key interests and ideals for Indonesian foreign policy with regards to US-China competition today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mantong. Now I turn to Ms. Joanne Lin from Singapore.
Yes, I will use this. So I thank you, my previous speakers, for talking about their national position. But I will focus on ASEAN as a whole, on this US-China competition and how the grouping may advance its strategic alignment and cooperation with South Korea, because I come from the ASEAN Study Center. So in this particular survey, it's called the State of Southeast Asia 2023 survey report that we produce yearly by my institute. Some of you might have come across before. We asked ASEAN countries how they would actually address the US-China rivalry. And we found that majority of Southeast Asian respondents continue to favor the options of enhancing ASEAN's resilience and unity to really fend off the pressure from the 2 major powers. And this option is actually more pronounced amongst respondents from Vietnam and the Philippines, and we know that both are active claimants in the South China Sea. And of course, the second most popular option is that ASEAN should continue its position of not siding with China or the US, and that's about 30%. And this is followed by the option of ASEAN seeking out third parties, such as Korea, to broaden its strategic space and option at 18%. And yesterday, we also discussed at the closed door that similarly, I think Korea can also use ASEAN as a very neutral platform as a third party to hedge against the strategic uncertainties in the region. However, if ASEAN were to force to align with one of the two strategic rivals, the majority of Southeast Asians respondents chose the US. That is about 60%, over China, which is about 40%. And I believe that similar research finding in South Korea has also shown that actually the majority of Koreans would choose the US due to the growing US ROK alliance. And actually yesterday it was very interesting because at the closed door conference, we noted the views, that some countries do not have to choose. So they asked the question, why do we have to choose, between US and China? And of course, for very pragmatic reasons, I think several ASEAN countries cannot align to one power or the other across the board in all areas, because there will be different priorities among countries in areas such as security, economic interests, how they choose their technology, whether is it China or the EU, or governance. But where ASEAN is concerned, I think it's easier to remain neutral. And why? Because it needs to balance the diverse interests among its member states. So as you all know, you may know that decisions coming out of ASEAN are at a very low common denominator due to the process of consultation and consensus. And because ASEAN is very inclusive, it becomes an important platform for Southeast Asia to engage both US and China effectively through all cooperation. And I think, in fact, ASEAN is in a very good position to play a bridging role that brings together US and China, of course, as well as other major powers through ASEAN-led mechanisms like the EAS, the ASEAN Regional Forum, and the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus to promote dialogue and build the strategic trust. And that is very lacking. And also, what we discussed yesterday was also that South Korea and ASEAN has different strategic priorities in the Indo-Pacific. And of course, the threat from North Korea and the need to build this ironclad alliance with the US, these sort of sentiments cannot be shared by Southeast Asia. We don't feel the same. But does that mean that South Korea cannot find some strategic alignment with ASEAN? I don't think so. Because US-led mechanisms are very important for South Korea. And South Korea has been very active in ASEAN-led mechanisms to support a ASEAN-centered regional architecture. And in fact, yesterday there was a very interesting question that was asked. And the question was whether the ROK, Japan, and the US trilateral alliance will affect ASEAN and its centrality. And my answer is no. Why? Because we understand that non-ASEAN minilateralism, including Quad or other trilateral grouping, may sometimes be necessary for the countries involved. So for example, if you watch the news yesterday, you see the meeting between Secretary Blinken and the ROK Foreign Minister Park Jin that took place yesterday, and they understand that there is a heightened threat in South Korea precisely because of the closer cooperation between North Korea and Russia. That was discussed yesterday. So can ASEAN help South Korea to address this threat? And the answer is no again. Why? Because ASEAN does not have the hard power, in its security mechanism to actually deter against the progressive aggression, potential aggression in this region. So what ASEAN is really advocating is not to get rid of minilateralism or trilateral, but that we want it to complement ASEAN's mechanism. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit of a long answer, but I will talk shorter for the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. That's great, insightful contributions. Okay, now we listen to the various views about the most important strategic background in this region. So then if we have an understanding about each other's position on this important background, then our natural question, the follow is that what can we do about against this backdrop? So in that regard, I would like to propose our second questions. Korea unveiled its first regional strategy, Indo-Pacific strategy last year, and then at the same time, Korea also proposed its first region-specific strategy called Korea-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative. And then I would like to listen to each of our presenters' views on what is your country's priority and what areas of cooperation would like to propose as a concrete action plan for cooperation with ROK, especially with regard to the maritime security in the Southeast Asia region and South China Sea. I would like to turn the microphone to Dr. Nguyen first.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Korea and ASEAN is living in the same region. It's a very fast-changing Indo-Pacific region. So we need a shared vision, and I think we already have one shared vision, a region of peace, security, and prosperity based on the rule of international law. That is very important. And the regional architecture that is open, inclusive, and transparent. Of course, with ASEAN centrality is the key. So in that context, I think Vietnam and ASEAN, we all welcome Korea's announcement of its intention to establish a CSP, Comprehensive Strategic Partnership with ASEAN, and the proposal of the Korean KC to elevate the relationship between the two sides. So the vision is already there, so we need to synchronize the Korean vision and the ASEAN vision, the KC and the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, including the respect for ASEAN centrality and the ASEAN-led mechanisms. So this is very critical period, and Vietnam is happy to be a coordinator country. So we work closely with ROK and other ASEAN countries to discuss more details of the KC implementation, so for mutual benefit between the two sides. So because next year, that would be a very important year for ASEAN and Korea. That would, we would celebrate the 25th anniversary of our relation next year, and a possible upgrade of our partnership framework. So we synchronize, in Vietnam, we synchronize our priority, our interests with the ASEAN interests, with the ASEAN priorities. So I would like to name a few. First, I think that the Indo-Pacific region is first and foremost a maritime region. It is a maritime domain. So this is central for both the security of ASEAN and Korea, the Korean KC and the AOIP. Yeah. And secondly, it is a business. And economic cooperation is a traditional core of ASEAN and Korea cooperation, and it is time for us to bring it to new heights because things are happening very quickly in this region. Transformation, there are some challenges to globalization. So we need to care more about sustainable economic development, and also with a view to digital transformation. This is what we need in ASEAN and Korea cooperation. And last but not least, the Mekong-Korea partnership. 5 of ASEAN countries share the Mekong River, and it is a distinctive sub-region. So we care about the narrowing of the development gap and develop the sub-region so that it can meet all the opportunity and challenges of the global transformation, and also to ensure the inclusive growth, equitable development, and sustainable development, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Now I'm asking the Ambassador Sayabongs.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just quite agree with our colleague from Vietnam. Nevertheless, within the priority of the Korean ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, there are several areas through which Laos and Korea can strengthen the bilateral cooperation. One of these involves the promotion of economic development and trade, wherein the facilitation of trade mission and the improvement of special economic zone offer opportunity to collaborative investment and economic growth, particularly in the sector like manufacturing, development of infrastructure, may also bolster regional connectivity and enhance economic prosperity. Another area such as renewable energy cooperation also very important for Laos and Korea to explore, which will offer prospect for sustainable growth of and development. I just would like to recall our colleague from Vietnam mentioned about sub-regional cooperation also play a crucial role in helping to narrowing down the development gap between own ASEAN and new ASEAN member states, especially special attention to the enhancement of Mekong-Korea cooperation. In the past, Korea significantly contributed to the development in the Mekong sub-region. With the KASI, we need to explore ways to maximize the new projects in response to the impact caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and address issues like non-traditional security challenges in the Mekong sub-region, such as water management, energy development, agriculture, and rural development, and cooperation on environmental protection in response to the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I'll turn the microphone to the Mr. Lucio.
Thank you, Ambassador Lee. So ASEAN, except for affluent Singapore, mostly developing countries. So there's a lot of space for capable partners beyond major powers to get in there and help in the development needs of the region. So I think because the development needs of these countries are really more, and so more, not fewer partners are always welcome. And I say, this is one of the cliche, but often mentioned, that nobody in the region doesn't want to put too many eggs in a single basket. So diversify the risk, work with as many partners, because the needs the pie is huge. And of course, nobody wants to get too beholden to a few, a limited pool of partners. So I think in the areas of physical and digital connectivity, these are areas where Korea had developed over time capacity. And in the Philippines, for instance, we are also trying to work with many infrastructure partners. China, Japan are there. We are working in an inter-island connectivity bridge project to which Korea would be a major player. And this is in the Central Visayas group of islands. So we would be connecting the islands of Panay, Guimaras, and Negros through assistance from the Korea Export-Import Bank. And so I think this is a very transformative project that will benefit a lot of people that lives in these populous islands in the central part of the Philippines. And this is a testament to the synergy between the connectivity aspect of KASI and the Philippines Build Better More. And other countries in the region also have this connectivity roadmap aspirations. And to the extent that Korea, other players can come in, then I think that should be the way to go. Other areas, of course, the manufacturing sector, semiconductor, and also electronics. These are areas that can generate opportunities, jobs, revenues, and allow countries in the region to climb in the value chain. And so I think this also, it is also good for regional and global supply chain resilience. And so countries are trying to diversify away from one major manufacturing hub, going into the region like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. Of course, Philippines is more than happy to also develop its own semiconductor industry, to grow it and to contribute our share to making sure that there will be dispersed instead of an over-concentrated production of critical minerals or components in just one country. Like Indonesia, Philippines is also one of the most mineralized countries. We are endowed with a lot of natural resources. And of course, we are looking for partners to help us tap these resources. To date, we are one of the largest producers and exporters of nickel and cobalt, which, as we all know, are critical for the production of renewable energy technologies, the energy for the future, as well as for automotive revolution, like electric vehicle batteries. And so, like Indonesia, we're also looking at getting investors to develop our capacity to produce, refine, smelt the minerals at home, and to be able to extract more value from this finite resource. And I think Korea is a partner that we can work on in this front. On the maritime issue, of course, as I said earlier, Korea has demonstrated its capacity to help other countries in the region. In our recent maritime pollution incident, the Korean Coast Guard had been there to help, alongside also other partners. And I think this is a proof that we can look and expand our areas of cooperation on the maritime domain. And of course, Philippines, Korea, as other littoral states in the region, have a deep interest in ensuring unimpeded access in critical passageways of commerce and energy, like the South China Sea. So should be more open, vocal about expressing concern about potential restraints or constraints in access in these areas due to competition or disputes between coastal states. And I think there needs to be serious discussions also between Korea and coastal states, including those washed by the South China Sea, to call on restraint and eschew from taking actions that would further escalate the already tense situation, reinforce the need to abide by and comply with the rules-based order, including with the resort to international legal measures like arbitration. And so I think these are all important points that ASEAN and Korea can work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia, for your comments. Now I turn to Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before going to the priorities under KASI, I'd like to explain a few about my country, Myanmar. All of you know that Myanmar has faced issues and challenges at the present, but it's an internal issues, and it's not a threat to any other countries. And as I said, Myanmar continues to maintain and promote friendly relations with countries in the world, and Myanmar is a member of non-aligned country. And at present, Myanmar doesn't have a nuclear plant or something regarding nuclear. And Myanmar doesn't have a secret dialogue between North Korea regarding nuclear. So I'm so regret to hear that we don't have that kind of secret, the dialogue with not North Korea, also other countries still now. Thank you. And regarding KASI, Myanmar would like to cooperate with Korea in the 4 core lines. They are upgrade their ROK partnership, ASEAN ROK partnership, and strengthen bilateral relations with AMS. Second, expand cooperation in future and emerging areas for shared prosperity and development. The third is promoting future generation exchanges as drivers of future prosperity and increasing ASEAN ROK cooperation resources, including the doubling of the 3 ASEAN-related cooperation funds. I think these priorities will help my country to escape from LDC status. And in this context, I would like to strengthen exchanges and cooperation, not only between governments, but also at all levels in the areas of human resource development and socio-economic development. Experts, scholars, and research institutions from both sides could exchange ideas on topics including how to enhance mutual trust and deepen cooperation between the 2 countries, and as well as for us, poverty reduction, and also deepening cultural exchange. It can provide good suggestions through research and service and play an important role in enhancing understanding between the two countries. And Myanmar would like to propose carry out joint research in areas including cooperation and collaboration in health, education, and digital economy. Actually, Myanmar and ROK also agreed for strengthening cooperation in Myanmar infrastructure, human resource development, and socio-economic development. The two sides also agreed to continue sending Myanmar workers to South Korea under the EPS and to promote bilateral relations on the international front. In the year 2023, Korea provides Myanmar in the food processing sectors and technology advice and solutions from Korea program task. However, knowledge sharing program KSP, EIMPP, Economic Innovation Partnership Program, and ongoing grant projects of KOICA and KOICA seminars and KOICA WFK volunteers program are being suspended for Myanmar for the time being. So Myanmar would like to request Korea to support on these programs and implementation of KOICA's ongoing grant projects and proposed OTA projects. Especially EIPP and KSP are mainly supporting for human resource development assistance. So Myanmar would like to request Korea's side to provide these programs, although new OTA projects are suspended. And Myanmar would like to continue the Korea-Myanmar Industrial Complex projects, which was paused in January 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for your comments. Now I turn to the Dr. Pongpisut.
Okay, thank you very much. To strengthen KASI, strategies and promoting Korea and ASEAN relations, I think there are several points that we need to emphasize. First, of course, economic in nature. So Korea and ASEAN should continue to deepen their economic ties, engagement, to reach like a more substantial trade investments and ODA between the two regions. Of course, after post-pandemic, economy, ASEAN countries, especially less developed countries, need Korea's resources and technologies and expertise to help them, upgrade their economy and, especially to alleviate, poverty. So that's the first point. The second point is that Korea may want to invest more in playing an active role in certain regional security issues, especially in mainland Southeast Asia. I'm talking about the conflict in Myanmar, and then actually the first step that Korea might want to do is to help Thailand and the international community to provide more humanitarian assistance to Myanmar refugees along the Thai-Myanmar borders, and that would increase Korea image in the international communities and to the sub-region as a whole. The third point that's related to the Mekong sub-region is that we are pleased, right, to see Korea's strategies on the sub-regions, and that like a very constructive role that Korea emphasize, and I think that would help a lot to Mekong sub-regions to go on with that development, especially the least developing countries, that raising Korea's profile in ASEAN, advance Korea and Mekong's economies at the same time, and strengthening regional community building, right, including Korea within it, right? So so in that sense, Korea would be like submerged into like a regional community buildings that the ideal, right? And eventually, like if you focus on certain issues and economic developments, especially sustainable developments, connectivities, that would be the win-win situation for both ASEAN, Mekong sub-regions, and Korea. And the fourth point, actually, I concur with other colleagues about promoting people-to-people's exchange, especially academic exchange, research, conversation between think tanks like this. Tourism should still continue to be promoted, as there a well, like received or receptions, in ASEAN about the Korean cultures and people, and and 5, ASEAN country ranking among the top 10, for Korean tourist destinations. However, this trend, does not automatically all the time translate into the improved understanding between the two sides. If you look at this, rough statistic survey by my colleagues, institute in Singapore, you can see that ASEAN tend to choose, for example, like Western countries and Japan, over Korea as the destination for education, right? Simply speaking, like 9.2% choose to go to Japan instead of Korea, only 1.2%. And their holiday destinations, according to the survey, to Japan is 27%, and Korea only 7.2%. So I think we have a lot of rooms to improve in this kind of people-to-people exchange and contact. So in that sense, we cannot let just like the market drive, these cooperations between people and contacts. Government should help actively promote it, so that both sides between ASEAN and Korea could understand each other more, and eventually like we could benefit from this exchange in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pongpisu, for your comments. Now I turn to the Ambassador Sushila.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have to beg your pardon. I did not address your first question. I thought in the interest of time, I only have 5 minutes to make. So I skipped the US-China rivalry. Now, let me share my view regarding this. I think the centerpiece of the US-China and US rivalries center around 2 major issues. The first is the liberal international order through which the US and China see each other, not eye to eye, but very differently. They don't see eye to eye, they see it differently, very differently. The second point is the decline of the multilateralism. The global world now, including the UN, does not have an effective mechanism to manage crisis or conflicts of the scale like US and China rivalry, not to mention crisis in Myanmar, not to mention Palestine, Israel. UN now is suffering a great deal. So, and you need to know also that although Biden have tried to recalibrate the inward looking of America first, America only under Donald Trump, his policy, his foreign policy toward China is even more tougher. It's not smoother, but more tougher. The US is determined to do whatever to prevent China's strategic ambition to alter the international order that we all know it. But the big question, can the US do it or not? And then you see now the US is counting not on multilateralism, but more of a like-minded club. AUKUS Quad has been discussed, and then Korea, Japan, and in David Camp with the US is now it's part of this strategy that is led by the US. On the other hand, China continue to rise, and you need to know that China have a very big ambition, and that is to become, that is to say that China will become a global power in transforming the unipolar world into a multipolar world, or at least a bipolar world, through which China itself will be one of the new superpower. That have to be very clear. And China increase its power projection beyond the region and expanding military power, doctrine activities such as they wanted to assimilating Taiwan, and also want to resolve maritime dispute with Japan and 5 other claimants their own way, not using multilateralism, not using international law, not UNCLOS. So Beijing's strategic objective in safeguarding its core interests, South China Sea, Taiwan, Tibet, and all these things, it will inevitably come into a big confrontation with the U.S., and this will put a lot of pressures on ASEAN. And of course, the Republic of Korea. I think both ASEAN and the Republic of Korea have the same hurdle, that is to say, to manage or navigate through U.S.-China rivalry. So I have given my suggestion, 9 suggestions how to make the next step of the ASEAN-Korea comprehensive strategic partnership a reality. I just simply wanted to add that both sides need to explore when you do that, when you want to effectively make the new relationship a reality, you need to explore the synergy between the AOIP, the ASEAN adopted in 2019, and Korea Indo-Pacific strategy that was that was launched at the end of 2022, so that both sides can maintain its strategic importance vis-a-vis US and China. And my message for this CASI and all this is that you have to go beyond rhetoric. It's good to aspire to achieve this, the vision, the prosperity, and the freedom, the 3 visions that you advertise, and the 8 core line. Now the policy has been set. You need to swiftly create a roadmap, a kind of like an implementation plan, back up with evaluations and monitoring. Make sure that everything you say is implemented, and it implemented correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Soshla. It's always good to hear your strategic thinking. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. So, and then the apologies is mine. I gave you the certain time limits because I didn't know that our presenters is such a good at keeping their times. So, okay, now I turn to Mr. Thomas Daniel.
Thank you very much, sir. I think for this question, I'll just start by saying that, the 8 core areas, the 8 priorities of CASI, I think they're really well thought out. It demonstrates that I think stakeholders in South Korea were very comprehensive in approaching this, and based on the conversations that we had yesterday, sort of constant requests for input on how they are received, how they can be improved, how they can be further fine-tuned. I think you are definitely on the right track here. All 8 priority areas, we were asked to think what priority areas would matter to Malaysia. I would say all 8 matters, but let me just focus on 2. I think the first is the 3rd core area on comprehensive security cooperation, both from, both maritime security and cyber security areas of key concerns to Malaysia, which I think the ROK can come in on. In terms of defense industry and logistics, there's already an MOU we have on defense cooperation. It was signed in April last year. So I think there is a basis to build on, and I think that South Korea has a key advantage over traditional Western partners and suppliers, especially in terms of price point, in terms of level of technology, in terms of NATO compliance. At least this is for Malaysia. The second area I would say is the 5th core area on expanding cooperation for future and emerging areas on shared prosperity. Here, particularly the subtopic of digitalization, whether it's digitalization in terms of policies, trade, processes. These are the core focus of many ASEAN countries now. It's the core focus of Malaysia. You see it in the outcome of Malaysia's bilateral and multilateral initiatives, including key announcements from the Prime Minister's visits to an assortment of countries, including in Southeast Asia and beyond. There's always a digital component, there's always a digital trade component. So this is a particularly important area. If I can, Mr. Chairman, I just want to end with one further point, and that is something that that I picked up from Chancellor Dr. Park's opening remarks. Now, he mentioned that South Korea did not just overcome poverty, and and it's now a developed country. He also mentioned that South Korea overcome a system of autocratic governance. It's now a robust democracy with very accountable systems. I think this is a very important part when it comes to engaging with Southeast Asia. It's an important part of your soft power approach with ASEAN member states, which unfortunately, is experiencing tremendous backsliding when it comes to these issues. I believe that there cannot be sustainable economic development without accountable and transparent policies in place. This is something that South Korea has done really well, and this is something you should consider. It will be difficult to do this with governments, but look at how you can engage with CSOs, with private sector stakeholders on this. I think there is a lot to offer, but again, the baseline that you're starting on is very low. So that's something I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for your comments. Now I turn to Mr. Mantong.
Thank you very much for the question. Similar with what Thomas said, this is already a good list, not only because it's quite complete and comprehensive, just also because before the KASI was launched, I was having meetings quite frequently with people working at the Korea Mission to ASEAN, so we discussed a lot what sort of practical and feasible recommendation that we can propose for the next policy that replace the New Southern Policy. So when the list come, I was quite happy with the list, but there are some still things that probably we should work on. First is on the fact, by the fact that at least from the Indonesian side, Indonesia would still expect that Korea would not join the chorus of making ASEAN choose between US and China. And when we heard that the pillar of people, peace, and prosperity of the New Southern Policy replaced by freedom, we have no problem with that, but we are quite self-aware whether this new word freedom would reverberate with the fact that ASEAN countries are consistent with multiple forms of government and political culture. So the list also answered the fact that, okay, this is not a big deal, the word of freedom and the consequences for ASEAN. And having said that, how to move forward? Instead of talking about specific areas of cooperation, probably I would like to highlight before KASI is already offered a good list, then ASEAN and Korea should work with the fact that there are certain mode of cooperation that ASEAN has adopted so far. So we always begin with declaration, and sometimes it doesn't go anywhere if it's not followed by a clear work plan and clear monitoring and evaluation. So it's really a good start to think on how each areas offered by KASI can be followed up by clear work plan. Also because the fact that we have also the ASEAN-Korea Cooperation Fund, and ASEAN has also similar mechanism, for example, with Japan-ASEAN Integrated Fund. And the problem is always the same. Sometimes the fund is there and it's not being utilized. Why it's not being utilized? Because you cannot find the right formula of different sectoral bodies in ASEAN, which probably has different mode of cooperation and different progress. So it's the key to move forward is to find each and relevant sectoral bodies in ASEAN and who's the lead shepherd that can move the cooperation forward. Like for example, the US has been so strategic in partnering with the Indonesian government because the Indonesian government is the lead shepherd for the areas of cooperation for counterterrorism and counter-radicalization. So the US support for ASEAN has developed into a partnership, from partnership into the actual work plan, from which ASEAN can evaluate every year which activities has been followed up or not. So the key of moving forward involves finding the true working institutional mechanism that can prove relevant. And for areas of cooperation, I would not go detail because we're going to have a discussion on maritime security and economic security. My biggest concern is for those two. But at least let me say there are two areas of cooperation that could be relevant, which is the areas of addressing cyber security and cybercrime issues and addressing North Korea nuclear issues, because this is the most important thing for Korea, right? The most important question from us for any Korea engagement is because we know that Korea has been good so far in addressing soft power, in becoming the model of economic. I flew from Jakarta yesterday, and two of the foreign policy speeches made by the presidential candidates, two of them says that the model that we should follow is Korea. So it gives you the impression that Korea has been a good model for economy, but the question is, how are you going to develop from the economic power to become the security power? And we know that whenever we talk about security power, the burden is always North Korea. And every time the South Korea is being asked how you can play more role in security front, they always say that the similar thing. What can ASEAN, what ASEAN can do for addressing North Korea? And in this matter, at least by focusing that there are some excesses of the North Korean illicit cyber activities, for example, we can move forward by discussing, by bringing this agenda into the dialogue in ASEAN. And of course, also for the nuclear issues, this is also the time to revive the dialogue on how non-proliferation, the peaceful use of nuclear technology should be discussed again at regional level. So I would stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mantong, for your comments. Now I turn to Ms. Joanne Lee.
Thank you. So on KASI, I would just say that I'm very glad to finally see that Korea is going beyond practical and functional cooperation to one that really focuses on strategic issues and maritime security and defense. And I'm only going to talk about one area because I know that time is very short. And I'm going to talk about maritime cooperation because it is very important for Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia is known as a maritime region, and almost all Southeast Asian countries are coastal states except for Laos. And bringing the Indian and the Pacific Oceans together really create one of the most strategic maritime spaces in the world, whether is it security, is trade, is energy, or marine resources. And there are many important straits in the Indo-Pacific that are vital for trade. And in case that you didn't know, South China Sea alone carries 1/3 of the global shipping trade. So you can almost imagine that in case of a Taiwan contingency, I really do not know what to expect. So it is also not surprising that within ASEAN alone, there are more than 500 international shipping seaports. And that is the reason why Korea should really do more, because there are many economic benefits of maritime cooperation, but there are also many challenges in the maritime domain, and they are getting very complex and multi-dimensional. And that I talk about the maritime transnational crime like piracy and trafficking in persons, cyber attacks against ships. Even we see climate change that affects marine life, and also cases of the illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. These are real problems in Southeast Asia. So despite the importance of the maritime cooperation, I'm actually a little bit disappointed that South Korea does not yet have a specific cooperation mechanism with maritime Southeast Asian countries, although I know that KASI has placed greater emphasis on the maritime cooperation. And I think other aspects that South Korea can consider is really to help ASEAN strengthen its maritime domain awareness. And this is something that the US and Quad are also interested in working with ASEAN. And I'm sure Korea can definitely find some synergy in that. And I know that Korea is currently part of the Information Fusion Center in Singapore, and also the RECAP, which is the Regional Cooperation Agreement to Combat Piracy in Asia. And these platforms are very useful to create collaboration, although they are not ASEAN platforms. And then, of course, some scholars have suggested cooperation like building the capacity of coast guards, including in countries like Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, or Indonesia, because they are facing aggressive behaviors by Chinese coast guards and militia in the South China Sea. And I know that Japan, if you read the papers in these few days, you will see that Japan is stepping up cooperation in this aspect by offering this official security assistance. They call it OSA, and they have already offered it to Philippines. And I think Coast Guard's cooperation are not are very important, not just because of China, okay, but because it could help to address a lot of transnational crimes like human trafficking, drugs, arms, and wildlife, and it can help with border management and the IUU fishing. And the last thing that I want to propose is for Korea to look into the cooperation of protection of migrant workers in the fishing industries. The migrant workers from Southeast Asia, every day or every other week you are eating seafood, and many of your seafood are actually also produced by migrant workers from Cambodia, Indonesia, Myanmar, Philippines, and Vietnam that works in the fishing industries in South Korea and also in Japan. So I'm sure that you can work with ASEAN to ensure their well-being and welfare. And this would actually support the ASEAN Declaration on the protection of migrant workers that was only adopted by leaders this year. This is something that we can appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johan. That's really insightful comments. Okay, I think regarding the cooperation between the Korea and ASEAN, there's a lot of buzzword regarding the economic security, decoupling, de-risking, or security of the supply chain, resilience, friendshoring and nearshoring, all those things. So on those global trends, and then the big buzzwords in this region, can I ask some of you to make comments on these issues? Given the time, I think constraint, I think if you can limit your comments, maybe around 1 minute each, that will be great. Thank you. I will start from the Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, with regard to economic security, I think that that is interrelated to maritime security, our business cooperation. I think that coming from economic business cooperation, I think it's time for us to make efforts to promote trade and investment in a balanced and sustainable direction, and open the market for further agricultural, aquatic products and seasonal fruits from Southeast Asian countries. Well, the Korean businesses continue to expand the scale of investment in Vietnam and ASEAN, and ASEAN businesses also participated more deeply into the global supply chain of Korean businesses. So we should, facilitate and also provide a good environment for the businesses to thrive, and that is environment and the security of the supply chain, and also the economic and business environment that we need to take care for. And also in the sense of digital transformation and cyber security is also an area that is a new concern for Vietnam and for ASEAN country, and it's also new for us. We understand that Korea is very advanced in terms of digital transformation, and security of the cyber domain is also an area that we need to raise the awareness, as well as the cooperation on capacity building, transfer technology for the business community to thrive.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Now I turn to the Ambassador Saibong.
Yes, for Laos as a landlocked country located in the heart of the Indochina Peninsula, does this impact of any disruption of flow of goods, resources, and the people could be directly impact Laos, as we are dependent on transit of neighboring country in terms of export and import. As the region continue to undergo geopolitical shift, it is unavoidable for the region, including Laos, to encounter economic instability. The external imbalance significantly impact the economic sectors, leading to an increase in supply chain costs and living costs as the whole due to the financial instability. To minimize the impact of the economic security, Laos need to mobilize internal resources as well as seeking support from external partners to promote more domestic production and distribution in order to reduce import things that the local people can produce. And also, we try to export processing rather than export raw material. In this connection, Korea is a very good experience in terms of processing, can help Laos in terms of the production for export, as we are needed to turn this kind of activity rather than import everything. Another threat to the country economic security, as our colleagues have mentioned about cybersecurity. Nowadays, this is illegal, clandestine, or coercive activity of non-state actors that is in order to gain unauthorized access to economic intelligence. Most damaging is individual asset. As now we in the region, probably you heard a lot the news from Thailand and Cambodia. Now they try to shift from that region to the northern part of Laos and Thailand and Myanmar. That is very difficult to counter this. Laos cannot act alone, but the country in the region need to work together to and we also need to have a kind of appropriate mechanism in order to deal with this kind of activity. Otherwise, the situation will be spread larger to some extent. So, thank you very much. Korean has, in the lesson of the cyber securities, more advanced technology can help ASEAN to cope with this kind of issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I turn to Lucio.
Yeah, so global supply chain resilience is a good objective, and I think is desired by many countries. And so I think avoiding heavy concentration of critical minerals or components for a whole range of technologies is very important. So trying to geographically disperse them to as many places, including this trend towards offshoring or friendshoring to Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries. So ASEAN and Korea have a lot of complementarities. So of course, ROK as the capital, they have the technology. ASEAN, on the other hand, they have the land, the labor, the market, the critical minerals. So I don't see any impediment, and I see a whole big space for ROK and ASEAN to work together to address problems, bottlenecks, constraints in a global supply chain production. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucio. Now I turn to Ms. Tain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Myanmar believes regional cooperation on the economic security contributes to the peace and prosperity in the region. So ASEAN and Korea can work together in the areas of economic security. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. Now I turn to Dr. Phongpesut.
Thank you very much. I think the current geopolitical competition just pressure a lot of countries to securitize their economic policies and everything. So securitizations of the economic issues, I think eventually it's going to impede the ongoing economic liberalizations. Even though in short terms, perhaps it will benefit some countries, right? But in long term, it's actually suboptimal. Eventually, the industries and consumer at home will pay the price. The higher costs and from that kind of decoupling and de-risking. So what we can do is that we should adhere to economic liberalizations that we have been trying to to push forward for decades, right? And then it should be inclusive, and it should not isolate anyone, from these economic liberalization trends, so that we could maintain prosperities and stabilities in the regions, and also everyone will benefit from it. Apart from the regional economic liberalizations, multilateral liberalization should still be supported. So I think that's the way in which I see this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Now I turn to the Ambassador Sushil.
Yeah, thank you. To me, economic security must address the most fundamental elements of economic, the meaning or the effectiveness of economic activity, and that is to say, to maintain growth and at the same time make sure it's inclusive and sustainable, okay? So for Cambodia, I think successive government have been addressing these issues, maintain growth and make it inclusive, trigger down to the base and sustainable, meaning with regard to social, environmental, minimizing everything that's impact to the environment. And I'm sure South Korea is at the forefront of it. But another fundamental aspects of economic security have to do with the economy that is related to digital transformations. After COVID, everybody turned high-tech, AI, high-tech, smart, green. You hear all these, and I think Korea is, again, at the forefront. So if Korea can capitalize in using these latest technologies to help countries like Cambodia to go green, to be smart, smart city. They even talk about smart water governance now. Issue related to the Mekong, for example. And then a green grid, a green energy. People might want to know that these are very fashionable when we talk about economic security of the issues. But the most important thing for developing country like Cambodia is to choose a right partner or right development partner that can help boost economic activity in the right direction, and Cambodia have high regard toward South Korea. Thank you.
Okay, Ambassador. Now I turn to Daniel.
Thank you, Ambassador. Look, economic security is very much linked to Malaysian foreign policy and in fact, national priorities. We are fundamentally a trading country that is connected to the global supply chain. I think on economic security, there are both opportunities and challenges for us. Malaysia is a commodities exporter, but it's also a manufacturing center that is very important in several global supply chains. The aerospace industry, the semiconductor industry, for example, both these areas are facing increasing demand, which will benefit us. Malaysia is one of the countries that is mentioned as a key destination in Southeast Asia when it comes to repositioning of key investments away from China, away from Taiwan, to sort of bolster the strategic supply chain. That's good for us. We're not part of the Chips for Alliance. I don't think we would want to be, and I don't think we are at that level yet. We're not advanced enough yet. But we do have a memorandum of cooperation with the U.S. on a supply chain's resilience, and they consider us a key position in terms of a safe supply chain for U.S. chip investments. And 25% of semiconductors in the U.S. pass through Malaysia at some point, so it would be no surprise why they think so. But again, there are challenges, there are internal and external challenges. Ease of doing business, for example, internally, the need for Malaysia to move beyond industries that are dependent on cheap labor and move to digitalization and automation to increase the value of our production. But I think from externally, if there is wider and more complete bifurcation in the supply chain systems and in trade regimes, I think Malaysia is a country that will suffer. If there are restrictions on investments because Malaysia opts to go with Huawei as part of its 5G infrastructure, not happened yet, but already being talked about, then there are potential costs to be paid as well. So as I said, the good relations with the US and China, the economic benefits we have gained has been contingent on good and productive relationship between the two, and increasingly a good and productive relationship between Beijing and the EU as well. And if this starts to fray, then I think there will be negative impacts on us from an economic security perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Thomas. Mr. Mantong, can I share your thoughts?
Even though Indonesia does not really use economic security as an official term, as probably reflected in the document of Korea Indo-Pacific Strategy and also KASI, the fact that the theme of the ASEAN chairmanship picked by the Indonesian government in 2023, which is ASEAN Matters Epicentrum of Growth, reflect the Indonesian interest to ensure that the ongoing discussion on economic security does not divide the region and ask the region to choose side. For the from the Indonesian side, the key interest, at least today, as being widely discussed in the nation, is about critical minerals and especially nickels. And the potential problem that we have now is, of course, at the ASEAN level, we have been promoting the idea, for example, making an ASEAN declaration on building an EV ecosystem in the region. But the real interest for that is actually downstreaming policy that has been sought by by President Joko Widodo. By the policy, we don't want that the nickel can be exported in raw form to the international market, but have to be processed first. And the problem with this downstreaming industry is the fact that the new established smelter factories in Indonesia are dominated by China. And there are some also small investment from the Korean company on smelter industry in Indonesia, but it's not as much as compared to China. The potential friction in this area is, let's say, if the negotiation of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework or the consequences of Investment Reduction Act by President Joe Biden eventually come into the clause that would prevent U.S. market or any Western market and also cheap war members market to import any materials that has been produced by any China component. In that particular matters, the interest for the Indonesia side is going to be endangered. For this, so this is for us the fact that we still need dialogue. We still have to be more proactive in determining the upcoming global norms on infrastructure development, on investment, so that the fact that there are certain standards that can be used as non-tariff measures, for example, on labor standards, environment standards, cannot be increasing use just for the sake of competition. So this is the concern from at least from the Indonesian side that Indonesia want to promote through ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now I turn to Ms. Joan Lee.
Yes, thank you. I just want to be very, very short on this, and I just want to remind everyone that US and China, in ASEAN's perspective, are equally important because in China is ASEAN's largest trading partner, and it has a trade volume of over USD 670 billion, while the US is ASEAN's largest source of foreign direct investment in many countries, including in Singapore, and it has a value of up to 40 billion. So which is more important? And I would say that both are actually very equally important. And just to add on to that EV, now we're talking about decoupling and de-risking. You know, where EV is concerned, we all know that the supply chains nodes are actually with the US and its allies, like including Japan and South Korea, and even Netherlands, whereas the market is actually with China, and China consumes 40% of the chips. So any regulations that's going to be put by any countries, including the US and all, is going to affect all the major companies in the world. And even yesterday at the closed door session, we have actually discussed that trade is all interconnected. So I just ask that the government will give a little bit more thoughts in their recalibration in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joan. Thank you for all your valuable comments. So our time is almost over, but if there's any questions from the floor, then I think we may accommodate 1 or 2 questions. I can see 2 questions. Actually, three. Okay, 3 questions is raised. So I turn to the please introduce yourself first, and then be as succinct as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So good morning. My name is Sok Panyapon. I am the ASEAN Visiting Fellow at KNDA. So thank you so much for the chair and all the speakers for your engaging and very informative discussions over the topic today, which is a very hot issue now. So first of all, I'd just like to give my comments over the discussion today. As the ASEAN and Republic of Korea, or ROK, are planning to elevate their cooperations into the CSP to be next year, I think it's very important for all of us to sit down and discuss all of these important things. What's the real meaning of CSP actually? And I found that it's very important to figure out the perception gaps between Korea and the South Asian countries. And the ideas have been already floated around that it's very important for ROK to further strengthen the bilateral relations with all the ASEAN member states countries, instead of keeping an emphasis on one specific of ASEAN countries. That's my first comment. The second one, I think we have already discussed the areas of cooperations and further improvement that ROK can assist all the AMS countries, and also the effective use of the ROK funds for the implementations of a lot of projects. And through CASI, which has already been announced and adopted last year to further strengthen cooperations between Korea and ASEAN. I just have one short question. Given the short period of time of the mandate of the Yun administrations, how positive are you for the implementation of KC within the Yun administration? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I think for the sake of time, I think we can collect all the questions once and then allocate those questions to the proper speakers. Okay, the second question is, the gentleman in the middle.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for the opportunity for me to ask the questions. I have a few questions regarding the first discussion, which is the shared vision. My first question is to Ambassador Mai Sayawong of Lao PDR. The first question is, what should South Korea expect from Lao as the chairman of ASEAN in 2024? And my second question is to Ms. Joni Lin of Singapore. So as we all know that in 2018, Singapore was the meeting venue between the US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And although there are various views on the outcome of that summit, Singapore as well as ASEAN has gained a lot of international diplomatic reputation from that summit. So my question to you is that as we are moving towards comprehensive strategic partnership between ROK and ASEAN, should South Korea expect ASEAN to play a more prominent role in mediating the Korean Peninsula issue? And my third question is to Ambassador Pusutirak of Cambodia. How can South Korea and ASEAN make the KASI a sustainable initiative that not just a rhetoric, but also having a long-lasting endeavors in the future? And my last question is to Ambassador Lee Moon-hye of KNDA. Since we all have discussed the high issues, I would like to go low. In this question, how can young people and emerging scholars like myself contribute to the cooperation between South Korea and ASEAN? Thank you so much.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, apologies for not introducing myself. My name is Ike Bun Lee. I'm currently a GKS scholar at Yonsei GSIS. I'm also a researcher from Cambodia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, then the final question to Ambassador Han.
Thank you very much. My name is An Young-jip. I'm former Korean ambassador to Singapore. And thank you for your all thought-provoking and very deep, thoughtful comment and the presentation this morning. I would like to ask Ms. Joan Lin that you mentioned that we need some more development in the cooperation of the maritime sector. And as far as I understand, the Korean government did very well in the field of maritime cooperation with the Philippines and the Vietnam, and also we had a very good maritime economic and the business cooperation with Singapore. And as you mentioned, we cooperated in the field of combating the piracy in the region. What other area can we develop and enhance in the field of the maritime cooperation? And secondly, many of you mentioned that not just the overall Korea-ASEAN cooperation, but we mentioned that some regional cooperation like Mekong cooperation and some maritime area cooperation like Bimpa-Yaga cooperation, and that we will strengthen those cooperation too. But in some sense, within ASEAN, if outsiders focus on some regional cooperation, some other areas, they mentioned that it will undermine the overall solidarity of ASEAN. And should we be more cautious in approaching our cooperation in the sub-regional cooperation like Mekong and Bimpa-Yaga? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. We have lots of questions, and then I think we have just less than 5 minutes left. So let's go in this way. There is questions referred to the specific speakers, Ambassador Sayabong and Ms. Joan Lin and Ambassador Soshrak, and then those in that order, I think, make your brief comments on those questions. Then I'll conclude the session with my own answers to those questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just would like to briefly answer the question that next year, as we understand, next year Lao will be chair of ASEAN. Even though Lao will be a chair of ASEAN, nevertheless, own issue or agenda that we've been discussed during our chairmanship, Lao need to discuss and consensus with other ASEAN member states before we can go along with that one. Nevertheless, Lao as a chair, we have an experience. This is the coming year will be third time for Lao to be chair of ASEAN. Nevertheless, we will try our best to accommodate ASEAN member state as well as ASEAN dialogue partner in order to satisfy the goal that they wish to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Ms. Joan Lin.
All right, thank you. So I have two questions. One is regarding the use of Singapore's venue for a very important and events between the U.S. and the North Korea, Trump and President Kim Jong-un in 2018. And I know after that, they also had another one in Vietnam. So whether can Singapore play a great substantive role in this in ameliorating, that situation. I would say that it's a little bit tough. Usually ASEAN's strength or even ASEAN's member strength lies in its convening role. When I talk about the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Regional Forum or ADMM+, we have a lot of power to bring people together. So as you know that Singapore is not even a party to the Six Power Talk in the past. But of course, now we don't use the Six Power Talk platform. And ASEAN as a whole has very little leverage over North Korea. Although DPRK is a member of the ASEAN Regional Forum, and we can always use the ASEAN Regional Forum to engage with DPRK, but even then these days, a lot of times they only send their ambassador level meetings to this platform. They don't even send their foreign ministers. So of course, all ASEAN member states, we comply by the UNSC resolutions in regards to North Korea. And whether we have that true leverage, to be able to make a difference, that remains to be seen. But we are always happy to provide a venue for that. And on the question about the maritime security by Ambassador Ang, yes, of course, we can see that Korea is starting to look into it. It's part of the recap, it's part of the Information Fusion Center, and it has provided some equipment to Philippines and Vietnam. And I know that Japan has also recently given some Coast Guard's surveillance radar to the Philippines. And of course, military-wise, there are a lot of exercises that Korea is part of, and several Southeast Asian countries are part of, like the Garuda Shield, we have the Cobra Go, and always we welcome Korea's role in these multilateral exercises that involves the US and other countries. Maybe there's one other thing that South Korea can look at is the ADMM Plus exercises. ADMM Plus has conducted a standalone exercise with, I believe, China, US, India, and Russia. Maybe Japan. I think at least 4 countries. Maybe sometime in the future, if ROK wants to be more active in this sphere, there is also a possibility to look at the ADMM Plus exercise. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lin. Then now I turn to the Ambassador Social.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Both questions, I have 3 questions beside the Korean side. There's 2 Cambodian. I'm so heartwarming to know that Cambodians are so active in Korea-ASEAN relation. Sustainability of CASI. I was here many times over, and there was the same question with regard to the New Southern Policy, and Dr. Cho is here. There was a question with the New Southern Policy sustainable, because Korea is a democracy. Every new president, they have the new initiative. So now you have CASI. My view is that you already have the president and South Korea have now launched this very landmark. I think it's very important that Korea go beyond just a normal cooperation partner with ASEAN, but to involve security aspect. I have a suggestion, particularly for Chancellor Park and my good friend Dr. Cho, to consider. I think you should organize another workshop or make it more interactive, but get all the think tank, the reputable think tank from ASEAN to help do this roadmap, actually a work plan, how to operationalize the vision that you put in place now. First, the Indo-Pacific strategy, now CASI, and how you going to implement this plan, this vision through a plan, a workable plan, which covers 3 things. I think it's important. First, you need to address the strategic challenge that affect both ROK and ASEAN, particularly with regard to the question raised about perception gap, that still exists between the two sides. There's a fundamental strategic perceptions gap. Some ASEAN state not very comfortable yet with some of the terms you use in the vision statement and so on. And then the second point, you need to identify practical area of cooperation between Korea and ASEAN using KASI, and particularly making sure that anything that you adopt, it's doable. Don't put something or throw something from the sky that it cannot be done, but also yield effective result for both sides, South Korea and ASEAN. So do practical cooperations that is doable and make sure it is both sides mutually benefit. And the last one is to identify institutional mechanism through which some of these sectorial area that you identify as priority can be operationalized and monitor and evaluate as we go by. If you can have this roadmap, I believe that Korea can really take a leadership role in making sure that KASI will be sustained and long-lasting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Soshlak. And then the final questions from the gentleman in the center is that the role of the young scholars. Yeah, so I think we need to turn to the basics. Keep engaged in what's going on in between Korea and then ASEAN. And our governments and also through the cooperation with the various governments, we put a lot of emphasis on the exchanging with the young generation, especially young scholars. So like Professor Cho and Professor Chad, we are all try to engage in as many scholars as possible. So I think the back to the basic and try to be staying engaged as much as possible. That will be a new opportunities for young scholars. Okay, this is a really great discussions at this round table. So I think we feel like we got a lot of encouragement, but at the same time a lot of homework for the future. So with that in mind, I think I will conclude today's roundtable sessions, and I thank you for joining this morning's session. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the speakers.
Thank you, Ambassador Lee and speakers, for your insights. This concludes our roundtable. Now it is time to close the 5th ASEAN ROK Think Tank Strategic Dialogue. On behalf of KNDA, I would like to express my gratitude for being with us today. Wish you all the best and hope to see you again next year. Thank you.